today's episode of the Influence Marketing Blueprint, we're sitting down with Nate Lagos, CMO over at Original Grain. We're going to be getting into the nitty-gritty of all of his influence marketing programs, specifically on YouTube. That's where he lives and breathes every day. And we're going to get into exactly how he reaches out to influencers, the niches that he's picking these people from, how he's judging the right creators to go after on YouTube specifically. So on a CPM or CPV, cost per view basis. And then we get into how he actually computes that, how he identifies those people. And then after the fact, based on how he's worked with 30 to 50 creators over the course of the past year, he looks at an interesting metric called revenue per 1,000 impressions, or RPM. And so we get into the margin of all those things, the ins and outs and how that works, attribution, all of the above. So super, super insightful episode for you guys. If you guys are interested in diving into the world of influencer on YouTube specifically, this is the episode for you. Can't wait for you guys to tune in, and we're excited to jump in. All right, let's go. What is up, everybody? We are back with another episode of the Influence Marketing Blueprint. Before I introduce our guest, T-Lags, what it do, baby boo?
I get shouted out first. I love it. But Nate, how we living?
I'm good, guys. Can't complain. How are y'all?
Good.
We're doing good. Nate the Great. Any other nicknames that you got growing up?
Legos a lot because of the toy company, but I don't get any royalties from that. Disappointment, if you ask my in-laws, but other than that, all good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. This got heavy quick. All right, to transition here. Back with another episode. Super excited to chat with you. Our conversation got started in the Twitter DMs, like all great relationships. And but real quick, give the listeners the context of who you are, your role, and what Original Grain is.
Yeah, so I am Nate Lagos. I'm the head of marketing for Original Grain. It's a D2C watch company. It's been around for about a decade now. We specialize in using unique and reclaimed materials to make watches and men's jewelry. Some of our best-selling collections are made from whiskey barrel wood, military ammo crates, tone wood from high-end guitars. So a bunch of unique stuff. Our products range from around about $200 to $600. So we're not Rolex or Omega or anything like that, but have carved out a nice little niche in the world of watches.
Awesome. And just to give the audience the size of the company, just you don't have to use actual numbers, but maybe annual revenue or percentage growth that you've had from previous year to date.
Yeah, so we'll do low 8 figures this year. We're growing right now about 25-30% top line year over year, but we're doing it a lot more profitably. Contribution margins growing like 55% year over year. So we're pumped about that. But been around for a decade, so approaching 9 figures in total revenue. The team's small. I think we got 4 or 5 full-time employees right now, and the rest is contractors. So lean and mean, but doing our thing.
So your marketing team is contracted out, or do you have another full-time? Okay. Awesome.
I've got no full-time employees on my team.
Alrighty.
Yeah. Which gets frustrating, I'll admit, but it's great for our bottom line.
So let's get into the influencer marketing. So also just a more numbers oriented question is percent of revenue that you spend on marketing, and then break that percentage of marketing that you spend on influencers specifically, because obviously we're going to jump into that.
Sure. So about 40% of revenue spent on marketing. And that includes content creation, the team. That's a lot more than just ad spend. That's like all in marketing costs. And then influencer marketing takes up, depending on the time of year, about 10% of our advertising budget.
Nate the Great, percentage of marketing spend as a percentage of revenue, and then percentage of influencer spend of that marketing as well. What does that look like for you guys over at Original Grain?
So we spend about 40% of revenue all in on marketing, from ads to the team to content creation. It's 40% all in. And then influencer, depending on the time of year, falls between 5 and 10%. We get a little heavier into influencer as we approach holidays like Father's Day and Christmas.
And just to be clear, that's 5 to 10% of the 40 or of the whole piece of pie?
Of the 40.
Got it.
Nice. So I was looking at I referenced earlier, our DMs exchange kind of created the questions for today's show. But back in like June of 22, last summer, you were talking about how you were sponsoring 20 different YouTube creators in Q2 for Father's Day. About half of them crushed, half didn't. That was back when we first chatted. And then I put out a tweet basically asking like, hey, who wants to come on the show? You threw it out like, this is one of your highest ROAS channel. And then you said you're getting a 6X in Q1. And then you recently just said that, well, expand on that. You're saying 6X in Q1 of this year, correct?
Yeah. And Q2's been better so far. So we are fairly selective when we choose which influencers to work with. Selling watches in general is a very high consideration purchase. That $200 to $600 price point is steep. A lot of people are saving up till payday or for multiple paydays before they pull the trigger on that. So I am very selective and like to find influencers with highly engaged audiences whose content kind of does the targeting for me and lets me know people who enjoy this content are going to be the same kind of people that are going to buy watches from me. So we found the most success with YouTube creators that are creating content within the niches that we exist in. So our current best performing shows are guys who turn on a camera and they open up a bottle of whiskey and they drink it and review it and talk about it. And they make up all the crap that whiskey guys do. Like it tastes like bubble gum and banana, which I don't get. I think it all tastes like whiskey, but we've been just cold reaching out to all those guys, agreeing to a deal to sponsor the show. We send them some product, and it's been our most profitable channel by percentage by far. I wish it could take up a larger percentage of our marketing spend. The trouble with that is it's all manual outreach. It's got to be a right fit. We've kind of pushed the limits of like how far outside of our niches can we go before this doesn't work? And it's not super far. So that's why we stay pretty selective with who we work with.
I have a quick follow-up question on that. How are you gauging or measuring attribution? Obviously, within the influencer space, attribution could be a black box for a lot of brands.
Yep.
So is this just, hey, YouTube post, there's an affiliate link right in there, you're tracking all the sales from that? Or what does this look like? Are you measuring some sort of like system on the back end? How are you measuring that 6X?
So I like to look at what's worst case scenario. So for us, we give every creator a custom discount code and look at revenue brought in with that code as like, at the very least, I know that's how much that influencer drove, knowing that there's a halo effect, knowing that someone came to our site and used our code for Father's Day instead of the one the influencer gave them. But I, being the head of marketing for a super small bootstrap brand, would rather look at kind of like last click and like super worst case scenario.
So that 6X is the last click, worst case scenario?
Yep.
That's fire, man.
Yeah.
That ain't bad at all.
No, not at all.
So when you were talking, I wanted to go into like the niche YouTube creators. How'd you know that whiskey was a category, for example? And is there other ones, or how many are you testing? You already said like you can't go too far out or even slightly out. So is it 2 to 3 of them, or yeah?
No. So right now we're working with about maybe 13 to 15 creators for Father's Day, but we kind of pick them based on whatever products we need to promote. So like we just put out a collaboration last week with Toyota's racing development team. It's watches made from the same like racing grade aluminum from their trucks and everything. It's super dope. But that was kind of an area that we had never explored before. So we got on YouTube and did our manual searches for people that like Toyota TRD trucks and found a whole world out there of guys who are super passionate about this stuff and a bunch of creators that make dope content for it. So we kind of let our products guide, the niches we're going to dive into. Last Q2, that tweet you referenced was my first year at the brand. We sponsored everything because I was like, I just got to get some data on like what's going to work here and what's not. New brand for me. We sponsored some comedy podcasts. We sponsored some like mom vloggers trying to see like, well, it's the women buying for the men for holidays. So like, let's try to target them. We had some small wins here and there, but the safest bet for sure is staying within those kind of product categories.
And within each of those product categories, again, you're saying you're really trying to maximize, go deep within those categories instead of spreading wide like you initially had started doing.
Mm-hmm.
By going deep, are you literally testing at every size of an influencer as well? So, of all different followings, micro, mid-tier, macro, celebrity? How deep are you going? Are you working with all sizes or a specific type of size?
Yeah, so for us, we found about the floor is they need to average like 5,000 views on their last 10 YouTube videos. That's kind of like our like bottom floor for like we'll have a conversation with them, which is I think small. Like it's relatively small. Like obviously it's hard to get that many views on YouTube, but it's certainly not macro guys. So that's where we found a lot of successes in the kind of like 10 to 40,000 views on YouTube kind of range.
At a minimum.
Yeah.
Do you cap it anywhere of what you're not willing to pay for?
I think the biggest ones we've done, we were promised like 500K views, and prices on that were steep, but we felt like it was a good deal to still. Some of them worked out, some of them didn't. But again, like for us, we measure CPM and then RPM. So revenue per 1,000 views is something I look at to kind of give me an idea of what this audience is worth. So
prior to working with them, and how are you?
No, post. So
post. Yeah, I was going to say, how are you measuring that prior?
Yeah, so after a deal goes live, I like to pull all the data 30 days after, because again, like I like to look at narrowest worst case scenario possible. Say a video with 10,000 views drove $10,000 in revenue. That's an RPM of 1,000. That's super high. That's not what they are, but I'm trying to use easy numbers here. Typical RPM for us is like 40 to $70. So when we approach bigger influencers that average a lot higher views than we're used to working with, I've kind of got that number that I can just multiply and say, okay, this is how much money I expect to make from your audience, and then back that into a comfortable price that happy to pay.
Do you see it pretty consistent across the views? If the views from an influencer aggregate wise are smaller in comparison to a larger aggregate views, do you see consistency with that revenue per 1,000 views?
We do. Yeah. The biggest correlation is about the content. It's like some of the bigger like comedy lifestyle podcasts we sponsored with the YouTube show, those were a $15 RPM, so not great. But I think our best whiskey guy in Q1 was getting $120 RPM. So it's really just about the content. We know guys who are going to sit down at their computer, watch a video about guys tasting expensive whiskey, and then go and buy it and try it for themselves, are the guys we're trying to reach. So we know the value of that audience is going to be super high.
So if you're like on a 500,000 average view, you had said something earlier about like people are saying that we're going to get you 500,000 average views. But when you're saying I'm going to take your average on the past 10, how'd you come to an agreement on that deal?
It's the art of persuasion. So
the big numbers got you, huh?
We take the average last 10 and we just like tell them like we're super transparent with them, and we're like, hey, like listen, we expect this video to get 500,000 views in 30 days. The type of content you produced tells me it's going to produce a $20 RPM. We'll do the math on that and say that's what we want to pay you. And if they say no, we say no. So having it super kind of data focused has helped us just make deals happen quicker or not. Because I've talked to influencers that way undervalue themselves and way overvalue themselves. And the ones who undervalue themselves, they end up making out great because we work with them for months and pay them every other week for a video, and it's fantastic for them. And ones that overvalue themselves, we tell them, hey, if you're ever willing to do a deal for this, call us, or if views increase, call us. But if not, we can't do it.
So on that $20 RPM on 500,000 views, you're willing to pay him 10 grand?
Yep. Well, no, that would be RPM. So that's revenue. Right. So then I would say, okay, if I think I'm going to make 10 grand from that video, I'd want to pay 3,500 for it.
Okay, so you're not giving them that. Got it.
Yeah. Yep.
So okay, so you measure out that number on a $20 RPM on 500,000 views. That's 10K, right? So then you're saying you want to make what percentage of that each time? 65%?
Yeah, between 60 and 70.
And that's always just a conservative, so you're making more than that regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And you're actually paying a pretty cheap CPM at that point then on that. Very cheap. Less than $10.
Yeah, so most of the deals work out to between like a $10 and $25 CPM. the higher ones we're okay with paying the creators that are getting us $60 and $70 RPMs. But yeah, it's been great up until this year. We were getting like cheaper CPMs there than we were on Facebook. Facebook CPMs are super cheap these days, so we're enjoying that too. But yeah, it's cheap and it's highly engaged, targeted traffic. So we've been really happy with it.
Yeah, but I mean, even on the CPM equation, that's what I've never understood. It's like I can optimize for CPMs and try to get as cheap as CPMs as possible. If it's strictly about a CPM, I can get cheap CPMs all day. You're like, this is not a optimized platform. You're getting these views from people that are on an algorithm basis. So it's not apples to apples. You know what I mean? So I'm basically endorsing what you guys are doing because you're tapping into audiences without being able to optimize for something.
Well, and like that's what we've seen, because like when we do the revenue per thousand impressions equation on our Facebook ads, it's terrible. It's like so much lower than that YouTube audience because it's not as engaged, because it's not as highly targeted. So yeah, I wish I could spend 100% of my ads on this channel. It's just a lot of work to manually find all these guys, reach out to them, agree to a deal with them. But we are actively trying to maximize that channel. What's that?
I said you're preaching to the choir, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm curious too, just off this, it seems like there's a finite pool of influencers for you that are highly converting. Like you said, there's a pretty decent drop off as you go outside of that. Are you onboarding these individuals that, really crush it for you onto some sort of ambassador program? Are you re-engaging with them on a monthly basis? What does that look like for your team?
Yeah, so we're getting to now. This program for us is only about 14 months old. So this year was the first.
Off to a hot start.
Yeah, it's been great so far. I done a bunch of it at my last job too, so had some idea coming into it how it should work. But with a new brand, new audience, products, price point, all that, like, was kind of shooting in the dark a bit, which is where last Q2 the program was basically a break even, because half the creators crushed and half sucked super hard, and we were like, well, okay, at least now we know.
I mean, that's a success.
Yeah, for sure. So in January of this year, we hit up our top like 8 or 10 creators, and we're like, hey guys, love you, love to work with you. Let's agree to some deals. And they look different with each of them. We're pretty seasonal with Valentine's Day, Father's Day, and Christmas. So we've already got some ads booked in November and December with them. So less of a like consistent ambassador program and more just agreeing to kind of year-long deals.
And then on the actual deals, like, do you have any usage rights with any of this content? I know YouTube, it's like they treat it like a TV network. So it's very like, this is my thing, as opposed to throwing up a story, for example.
Yeah, there's more and more creators saying no to usage rights these days. We used to get all of them and use that on Facebook ads, or they worked really well as pre-roll ads on that creator's channel on YouTube because the audience thought it was coming from that. And one of the huge benefits of working with creators that are like true representations of your customers, they write better copy than I can. Like we had a guy last year, like 50-ish-year-old guy, massive whiskey enthusiast. And the ad he spit back at us was like, he said, the superficial flex lifestyle is supremely uninteresting to me. But when you make a watch out of whiskey barrel wood like this one, this is interesting. And like he gets into it and I was like, oh shit, that's great copy. Like I changed all of our Facebook ad copy for a week to like, the superficial lifestyle is uninteresting to you. Like, check this out. Some of it worked, some of it flopped, but yeah, we like to use that content kind of across our marketing funnel as much as we can, but we are seeing more creators now either flat out saying no, or they want a pretty big fee to license it.
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me with the floor that you're working with, like at least 5,000 views. You're stepping out of that nano influencer, micro influencer range.
Yeah, a lot of the creators we're dealing with now like have managers or agencies running all their stuff. So yeah,
a micro influencer on YouTube with that type of following is typically much bigger.
So I mean, like their businesses we're dealing with agents, and I'm sure they've got strict guidelines for what they can agree to and what they can't.
So you're telling me you don't have ChatGPT write all of your copy for your influencers?
I'm starting to. I like to use AI
the
as
transparency. I love it.
As like square one. It's like a great starting block for me, and then I can kind of pick it apart. But as far as like the script we give to influencers, it's super light. Like I tell them like, hey, you have to mention our website and your code at the beginning of the ad and at the end of the ad, and you got to tell people what the product is, and we let them go from there, because I really think viewers have gotten wise to when their favorite creator starts going into I'm reading a script, like they can hear that, and they know it's not
Sure.
natural. So I like to give as much freedom to the creators as possible.
Have you thought about asking the current creators, even your 8 to 10 that you really love, who they follow and consume as additional maybe outreach or potential ways to find new creators?
Yeah, we have, and they all think we're trying to like take business away from them.
Oh, geez.
All right. That makes sense.
I've tried to explain to them like, listen, I've got a big budget. Like, can't all go to you because your audience will get sick of us eventually. But
Maybe right after you get them on that year contract, you ask that.
yeah, we what we have run into that's helped is there's like a couple agencies that will manage a bunch of creators like kind of within the same industry or niche or whatever. So like we've hit up a creator before, and he's like, hey, talk to my agent. We talk to the agent. The agent's like, hey, I have 8 other creators that are basically the same guy. So that's kind of been a great way for us to get more business. But creators usually don't like to share that with us.
One question on my end too, like you already mentioned it, it's time consuming to scale. It's not you going into your Facebook ad account and clicking a few buttons and launching some ads. So what have you found as effective means to help you in that way, whether it be software, other tools, overseas contractors, all of the above? Because the brand owner listening to this sounds great. And consume YouTube, like, and you yourself, like we were talking before the show, like you're the head of marketing about to bring on your first marketing full-time employee. So like, what percentage of your time is actually allocated towards this?
About to crack 9 figures.
Yeah,
That's
wild.
So Jackie's my part-time influencer manager, and she does a great job coordinating with all these folks. If it was anyone else, she might be a full-time employee. She is the fiance of our owner, so maybe she gives a little extra hours for us that aren't
Tax credit
being paid. But she does a great job doing all the outreach. In the last year, we've tried Upfluence, which was a software which for us had its limitations. We've tried Grin, that's had its limitations as well. So this year we're doing it all manually. The great thing is YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world to Google. So like when we're doing a new collaboration with Toyota, when we've never entered this niche before, we just go on there and type in Toyota TRD trucks and a bunch of stuff comes up. So, it's then time consuming for her. She goes and gets the links to everyone. She calculates average views for everyone. And then I'm fortunate enough that she just gives me a spreadsheet of, hey, here's the 20 guys that could be a fit. Pick your faves.
That girl is definitely working more than part-time.
Yeah, she's great. So, any other person who's not about to marry our founder, that's probably a full-time role, but more than pays for itself. So
For sure.
it's manual. To scale it, we'd probably get some VAs involved, see how hard we can go. But again, for us, like kind of limited by our niche. And like when I start to see there's more out there, we'll probably try to scale it up again.
I have a question on these people that you're contracting. Two questions really. When you contract them for the year contract, let's just use the 500,000 views person again. When bringing in $20 RPM, $10,000 worth to you, you pay them $3,500. Okay, let's just say it pans out. You hit 10K. Great. Are you trying to pay them for a year $3,500 and you just get the same activation once a month? What does that look like? And then 2, you see diminishing returns, like on that second post, on that third post, on that fourth post, so on and so forth.
So if we do more than 3 promotions in 45 days, the third one sucks. That's kind of like what we've seen as far as like diminishing returns go for us. The second one's usually the best one, but that third one is tough. So we didn't agree like monthly deals with anyone. The way we set it up was we signed on for one ad before Valentine's Day, and then 2 before Father's Day and 2 before Christmas. So within those gift giving times, like we had a lot hit this week, May 25th. We'll have the rest of them hit, the first or second week of June. And then November, we'll have them all hit the week before Black Friday and the week after. So that's kind of the tempo and cadence that we've found works for us. Because in July, no one's buying anything in July. So it doesn't make sense for us to invest a bunch of dollars into it. But Q2 and Q4, we know it crushes.
$3,500 per post in this hypothetical, though? Is that how you're paying them?
Yeah. So there's a couple creators that know, and they charge us more for the ads in Q4, which we're usually okay with. But yeah, we just agree to a flat fee for each post. And then they just got to post it within the right dates with our link and code in the description. And then, yeah, we pay them when they post it.
Super helpful.
Well, we'll be sending this podcast episode to all of them. So now they'll know the margin that you're taking.
Well,
it's not great. If we're paying you guys 35%, we got another 35% in COGS. It's not like we're making a killing on anyone.
Keep going, because we're going to hear this.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
My salary, Jackie, she's expensive. No, she's not. But
we got slave labor and the wife.
No,
we got to get this person paid.
No, I play golf every day on Saturday, so like we gotta pay for that. There's a lot that goes into it. But
yeah, that's smart.
This whiskey bottle.
The stuff's not cheap. We treat our creators well, and there's been a couple this year that like we've offered to pay more than they have asked for, because we're just like, hey, listen, we are winning. We want you guys to feel like this is a win. We want your audience to feel like you are pumped about this. So we'll give you 4K instead of 3, and then they love us for that. So I don't feel like it's a win to get one over on someone. Like if we paid them $1,000 for an ad and made 30 grand on it, it's like, well, that short-term win is fun once. And then after that, the relationship's going to fizzle out. So we like to make sure we're taking care of people.
Biggest piece of advice you'd give to someone entering into this channel, influencer marketing, what you're doing on YouTube specifically, what would be your piece of advice?
I would start as niche as possible and kind of work your way out from there. If I have to, Monday morning quarterback some of the deals we lost last year, they were way outside our lane, and they're like just super broad targeted. The content wasn't really anything to do with us. The demo was like kind of close, kind of not. I wanted a lot of data quickly, and we could afford it, so it was fine for us. But I would start kind of like as niche as possible. Pick your, if you could work with any 10 people on YouTube that you think would be great for your brand, start there. Then you can kind of start to push the envelope, and performance will tell you when you've gone too far.
Now, did you become a whiskey drinker after consuming all these creators that are whiskey drinkers? Started talking about it?
I've been a whiskey guy for too long.
Yeah, South Carolina since you were 12.
No, not quite. I grew up outside of Boston, came down to college here when I was 18. So that's when it first hit me. But yeah, whiskey guy through and through. Always thought beer tasted bad. Still do. So
you're in good company.
Yeah, I'm either drinking whiskey on like if I'm trying to get aggressive, it'll be like a high noon, maybe like a shot of Jaeger at some point. Yeah, I'm all over the place, dude. But it's been great working with creators that share passions. I think it's great when, like, for me, like, I'm representative of half our customer base. We're just whiskey dudes that think our watches are dope. So I think that makes my job a little bit more entertaining for sure.
Absolutely. You're living and breathing the ethos of the brand. Well, Nate, appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on. A lot of good stuff in this episode for you guys that are listening, especially if you're trying to dive into YouTube as a channel, which I definitely think is a awesome channel to be diving in with influencer marketing, even especially the introduction of shorts, which we didn't even chat about, but it's awesome what you're doing, man. So I appreciate the time. Where can people find you?
At Nate Lagos on Twitter. Not really active super anywhere else. I don't have a mentor pass. I don't have anything to promote. If you think our watches are dope, use code Lagos. That still might get you something. Or use code DAD30 for our Father's Day sale. And look out for us on YouTube. If you're a fan of whiskey or trucks or the military or guitars, you might come across one of our ads one day. So I appreciate everyone listening, and appreciate you guys for having me on.
Thanks, Nate.
That was a great close.
All right, that's all for today. If you'd like some help developing your influence marketing campaign, go ahead and DM us on Twitter. Links are in the description. Or you can head to kinship.co to learn more, and you can book a call there. That's KYNSHIP.co. At kinship.co, you also find tools, templates, and resources, all designed to help you grow an influencer campaign that drives visibility and sales, not just likes. Thanks for tuning in as always, and we'll see you next week.